Hi, I'm Kim Cooper, and welcome to my Emotional Intelligence Masterclass. Today I'm going to be redoing the movie that I posted last week. The reason being that I really don't feel like I did the subject justice, and I'd hate my poor performance skills to get in the way of getting that message out, which really is very important. If you're familiar with my work, you'll know that my main focus is on helping improve your home and family. I help build families full of love. But hey, it's a sick, sad world out there sometimes, and for us to be safe at home more than ever, we need to be able to make wise decisions. So today, let's jump in and tackle the situation that we're in right now in April 2020, with most of the world locked down due to the coronavirus pandemic. Questions and fears have emerged that range far beyond how long we might need to remain in isolation. Is the virus a bioweapon? Or maybe a pretense for something even more sinister, a plandemic, if you will, aimed at stealing our livelihood and restricting our freedom? Or, as some believe, is the virus a hoax and the lockdown a cover, while behind the scenes a coup is taking place, some kind of military-sponsored benevolent revolution? Many people are angered by these type of claims and insist that the virus appeared naturally. Still, many who disagree wildly on coronavirus talking points together fear that this may be the beginning of a new medical and political totalitarianism. Okay, so without pushing any of these views, today I hope I can help you to identify an emotionally intelligent path out of this wilderness that we've now found ourselves in. The article below this movie introduces a simple process that will help you access your own private inner source of wisdom. An inner compass, if you like, so that even when you're surrounded by slick propaganda and advertising that's aimed at influencing your decisions, you can still make the best decisions possible. By the end of today's lecture, I hope I can encourage you to have a look at this process. Okay, so first, I'd like to focus on the subject of liberty. And let's look at what freedoms we can agree need protecting. How about our freedom to express our doubts and fears without government censure? I think certainly most of us would agree that this is a freedom that needs protecting. But I wonder how many of us right now feel safe to exercise that freedom in our community. Do you feel free to express your doubts and fears honestly to, say, your neighbors? And what about in your own home? So now, before you blame anyone else, I wonder if you can even admit your doubts and fears honestly to yourself. Okay, so next up, what about our freedom to pursue our destiny? Again, I wonder how many of you enjoy that freedom right now in your home and community. And again, before blaming anyone else, I want you to ask yourself if you even know what pursuing your destiny means. Maybe instead your sense of adventure and curiosity has all been tied up in the next installment of the latest drama or mystery series that you've got yourself hooked on. Or maybe it's romance novels that you're into. I wonder, did you know that it's your doubts and fears that often hold your true destiny? Okay, next. So how about our freedom of expression? This time I want you to consider if you even know who you are, let alone how to express that self. Instead, how much of you is merely imitating a style or parroting an idea? jumping someone's train that you don't even know that much about, people you idolize and imitate who you've never met. And when you share their ideas with confidence and certainty, how often are you attempting to convince yourself as much as convince your listeners? And with limited self-knowledge, and without even being able to admit your doubts and fears to yourself, I wonder how often you then judge other people's self-expression. Real freedom and growth only comes about in our homes when we open a connection with ourselves and with our conscience. Through that connection, we then make small, high-quality decisions throughout each day, small changes that can eventually lead to an enormous change in our lives and our communities. But instead, like I talked about in my movie about emotional avoidance, many of us spend our lives avoiding the changes that we need to face for us to develop. Because let's face it, growth is tough, and it takes us facing uncertainty with humility. So, many of us right now are facing a lot of uncertainty. People are wondering, will I keep my job? Will I be able to meet my commitments? And if not, how will I sustain myself and where will I live? With all this uncertainty, and as people struggle to regulate their fears, it's no wonder that we're seeing so much blame thrown around. Arguments based on people's opposing beliefs have gotten even worse than they were already. But blame's not going to help us find a way out of this mess. Does any of us know for certain what's going to happen next? I don't think so. What I'm introducing in the series below is a way to deal with the uncertainty we face with more grace and with less egotism. Reinhold Niebuhr, who's been called one of America's most preeminent thinkers, wrote the Serenity Prayer, which is said to be one of the most quoted writings in American literature. God grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Now, as the most quoted writing, you'd think that people might at least quote it correctly. What Niebuhr really said put more emphasis on the actions we need to take. It said, Father, give us courage to change what must be altered, serenity to accept what cannot be helped, and the insight to know the one from the other. So now, why does this saying you can only change yourself come to my mind when I hear the first line of this quote? Father, give us courage to change what must be altered. If I can only change myself, that must mean finding the courage to change what must be altered in me. It's no wonder that Niebuhr has been called the conscience of America. Niebuhr lived through war and totalitarianism, and his take on man's vulnerability in the face of uncertainty might challenge our thinking today. From the New York Times obituary for Niebuhr, written by Arthur Schlesinger Jr. Traditionally, the idea of the frailty of man led to the demand for obedience to ordained authority. But Niebuhr rejected that ancient conservative argument. Ordained authority, he showed, is all the more subject to the temptations of self-interest, self-deception, and self-righteousness. Power must be balanced by power. Having the courage to listen to our conscience and make changes in ourselves is the only place that we'll ever find the power to balance totalitarian power. This fact applies whether totalitarian thinking lies in our governments, in our homes, or in ourselves. I'll repeat what I said earlier. Real freedom and growth only comes about in our lives from opening a connection with ourselves and our conscience. Through that connection, We make small, high-quality decisions throughout each day. Small decisions that can eventually lead to an enormous change in our lives and our communities. The small changes our conscience will lead us to might seem insignificant when considered next to the kind of totalitarian power the billionaires who influence world politics today hold. But what if all of us started being guided by our conscience instead of self-interest, self-deception, and self-righteousness? Doing the right thing instead of the done thing. We've all heard the saying, you can't change anyone but yourself, but how many of us live by it? Instead, we push our doubts and fears down while simultaneously pushing our worldview onto others. If only everyone worshipped the same God as me, we wouldn't be in the mess that we're in. If only everyone held my political viewpoint. How often do we face the small twist of guilt inside that's telling us in truth we need to do more listening? Listening to the truth in ourselves as well as listening more closely to others. Should I change jobs? Should I move to a new house? Should I divorce my husband? These are the type of big external changes that people jump to when they've forgotten how to access their conscience. Because unless a person walks the path of personal growth, changing your circumstances without changing yourself is nearly always going to lead you back to the same problems. What insights does your conscience have for you? Are you afraid it might ask you to suffer? How much suffering have you already caused yourself by not listening? The steps I share in the program below will demonstrate that your conscience, in fact, has more love for you than you've probably ever imagined possible. Okay, so please start now and read the Inner Connections introduction. The unit work in this process is free, but if you can, I hope that you will decide to become a member and join the discussion in our online classrooms.